Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. This is the first of a series of talks on the Abhidhammatta sangaha, also known as the Manual of Philosophy. But before we move on to it, I will first start off with an introduction to the teachings of the Buddha according to the Theravada school of Buddhism. The teachings of the Buddha are found in the Pali Canon, or Tipitaka. Pali is the name given to the ancient language of Magadhi in India, the language which was spoken by the Buddha. The Pali Canon was compiled at three great Buddhist councils, which were held in India after the demise or parinibbana of the Buddha. The first was 3 months after Buddha's parinibbana, the second 100 years later, and the third was 500 years later. Tipitaka. Ti means three. Pitaka means baskets. Therefore, Tipitaka means three baskets. You can also think of it as three folders. And each of these baskets or pitakas contain several volumes of books in which the teachings have been systematically categorized. The three baskets are the Vinaya Pitaka, Sutta Pitaka, and the Abhidhamma Pitaka. The Vinaya Pitaka pertains to the discipline and contains the rules and regulations governing the monastic order, the sangha. The sangha comprises of the bhikkhus, the monks, and the bhikkhunis, the nuns. The Sutta Pitaka is a collection of individual discourses which were spoken by the Buddha on various topics, on various occasions, over a period of 45 years. And finally, the Abhidhamma Pitaka, which is quite different in content as well as structure to the other two Pitakas. The suttas and Vinaya contain conventional teachings, Vohara Deshana, and they clearly lay down the method of personal training necessary to attain Nibbana, the state of final deliverance from suffering. And clearly they serve a practical purpose. The Abhidhamma Pitaka, on the other hand, contains ultimate teachings, Paramattha Deshana. This is a highly technical systemized analysis of the doctrine. In Abhidhamma, both mind and matter, which constitutes this complex machinery of man, are analyzed microscopically. Tradition has it that the Buddha contemplated the Abhidhamma during the 4th week after his enlightenment. But it was not until 7 years later that he preached it. He preached it to his mother as an act of gratitude. His mother had passed away 7 days after the birth of the Bodhisattva, the Buddha, and was reborn in one of the heavenly planes known as Tavatimsa. The Buddha wished to give the entire Abhidhamma teaching in one uninterrupted session. An earthly day, therefore, is not long enough for that. And the only way he could accomplish it was to ascend to a heavenly plane where the length of a day is equal to 100 earthly years, and each heavenly day has 60 hours. It is said that the Lord Buddha preached the Abhidhamma continuously for 3 earthly months, which is equal to 9 heavenly minutes. However, in order to sustain the Buddha's body, he returned to the earth each day to go on alms round. And it was during these visits that he passed on to Venerable Sariputta, his chief disciple, the topics of his teachings for that particular day. So, Venerable Sariputta is the one who is credited for formalizing the Abhidhamma teachings that we have today. The Abhidhamma is to help us develop right understanding of two important components of the doctrine. The first is the doctrine of impermanence, anicca. The second is the doctrine of no permanent soul or self, anatta. It gives one an understanding of how the mind functions and its relationship to matter. It helps one to understand the significance of certain profound teachings of Lord Buddha without confusion. It therefore is helpful to develop insight, to gain final deliverance from suffering, which is Nibbana. The well-known commentator of the Tipitaka, Buddhaghosa Thero, in his commentary on the Dhammasangani, states the following: and tradition has it that those bhikkhus only who know Abhidhamma are true preachers of the Dhamma. The rest, though they speak on the Dhamma, are not preachers thereof. And why? They, in speaking on the Dhamma, confuse the different kinds of karma and of its results, the distinction between mind and matter, and the different kinds of states. The students of Abhidhamma do not thus get confused. Hence, a bhikkhu who knows Abhidhamma, whether he preaches the Dhamma or not, will be able to answer questions whenever asked. He alone, therefore, is a true preacher of the Dhamma. Let us now look at the meaning of Abhidhamma. Abhidhamma is formed by two words, Abhi and Dhamma. Abhi means higher, greater, supplementary, exceeding or distinguished, distinct or special. And Dhamma refers to teachings or doctrine. Abhidhamma, therefore, means the higher doctrine because it enables one to achieve one's deliverance, or because it exceeds the teachings laid down in the suttas and the Vinayas. In the suttas and Vinaya, the Buddha has used conventional terms such as man, animals, beings, trees, and so on. In the Abhidhamma, everything is microscopically analyzed and abstract terms are used. It deals with the ultimate realities. This in no way infers that the other teachings laid down in the Vinaya and Sutta Pitakas are by any means inferior. But the analysis laid down in the Abhidhamma is very fine. It's very detailed, which is not seen in the other two Pitakas. The Abhidhammatta sangaha. The Abhidhammatta sangaha also known as the Compendium of Philosophy, is not part of the Tipitaka. It is a book which was composed around the 5th to the 12th century and is thought to have been composed by Venerable Anuruddha. Very little is known about this author. However, the Abhidhammatta sangaha is widely used as a primer to the study of Abhidhamma. And there are two very important English translations to this book, the Manual of Abhidhamma by Mahathera Narada and Comprehensive Manual of Abhidhamma by Bhikkhu Bodhi. The Abhidhamma Pitaka consists of 7 volumes. The Dhammasangani Prakarana, which translates as enumeration of phenomena or classification of dhammas or phenomena. The Vibhanga Prakarana, the book of analysis. The Dhatu Katha Prakarana, discourse on elements. Puggala Panyati, concepts of individuals. Kathavattu Prakarana, points of controversy. Now I must mention here that Kathavattu Prakarana was not a direct teaching, or it was not directly preached by the Lord Buddha. It was compiled by Venerable Muggali Puttatissa Thero in about 500 years after Lord Buddha's Parinibbana, and it consists of teachings of the Lord Buddha. Therefore, according to the Theravada school of Buddhism, the Kathavattu Prakarana is considered as the word of the Buddha. Yamaka Prakarana, book of pairs, and finally the Patthana Prakarana, book of conditional relations. When studying the Abhidhamma, it is important to understand the distinction between the two types of realities, the twofold truth. Sammuti Satcha, conventional reality, and Paramatta Satcha, ultimate reality. Sammuti Satcha, or conventional reality, refers to ordinary conceptual thoughts, panyati. These include entities like trees, people, animals, and the apparently stable, persistent objects that constitute our picture of this world. The other category of Sammuti Satcha are the conventional modes of expression, Vohara. These are the different names or terms which are used for conceptual thoughts. For example, mother. In English, mother may be called mother, mom, and in other languages may be called amma, ma, matu. Likewise, the same conceptual thought is given different names. So they have different conventional modes of expression. All these objects are products of mental construction. They do not exist by reason of their own nature. Therefore, they don't possess ultimate validity. This form of truth is what is seen in the suttas and the Vinaya Pitaka. The ultimate truth, Paramatta Satya, exist by their own intrinsic nature, sabhava. These are the final, irreducible components of existence, the ultimate entities, which is the result from a correctly performed analysis of experience. Parama refers to ultimate, final, or highest, and Atha refers to reality. In the way one extracts oil from sesame seeds, one can extract the ultimate realities from conventional realities. So, in order to get a better understanding of the two types of realities, we can draw from an example in our day to day lives. Let's take the example of a table. A table can be broken down into a top plank and four legs. But once we break it down, we no longer can call it a table. Because as long as the five pieces are together, that is when we call it a table. Once it's broken down, it's simply five pieces of wood. These pieces of wood can be further broken down into smaller pieces of wood, and finally, it can be sawed into sawdust, and thus it can be broken down into minute microscopic particles. So, a table, which is a conceptual thought, a sammuti satya, can be broken down to its final, irreducible component, which is the Paramatta Satya. Paramatta Satya is fourfold and consists of Chitta, Chetasika, Rupa, and Nibbana. Chitta refers to consciousness, and there are 89 kinds. Chetasika refers to mental concomitants or mental states or mental factors, and there are 52 Chetasika. Rupa, a material form, and there are 28 kinds. Nibbana refers to unconditioned. The Abhidhamma has two main characteristics: by way of analysis and by way of synthesis. By way of analysis is by analyzing into the four ultimate truths, which are the Chitta, Chetasika, Rupa, and Nibbana. By way of synthesis is in two ways: conditioned genesis or dependent origination, the Paticca Samuppada, and the second is conditional relations, the 24 Paccaya. By way of synthesis, Lord Buddha shows that the ultimate truths do not exist in isolation, but rather they exist in dependence of something else. The Abhidhamma is not completely different from the suttas. There are several suttas which contain the teachings regarding the ultimate truth. For example, in the suttas, the Buddha usually analyzes a being into 5 khandhas or aggregates called panchakhandha. These 5 are Rupakhandha, the aggregate of matter, Vedanakhandha, the aggregate of feeling, Sanyakhandha, the aggregate of perception, Sankharakkhandha, the aggregate of mental formations, and Vijnanakkhandha, the aggregate of consciousness. Out of the 4 ultimate realities, the first 3, Chitta, Chetasika, and Rupa, constitute conditioned realities, and these can be classified into the 5 aggregates. And let us see how this takes place. The 28 rupas are classified under Rupa Khandha, the aggregate of matter. Vedana is a mental factor which is part of the 52 Chetasika. Vedana is classified under Vedana Khandha, the aggregate of feeling. Sanya is another mental factor of the 52 Chetasikas, and this is classified under Sanya Khandha, the aggregate of perception. The remaining 50 Chetasikas, that is, we said that there are 52 Chetasikas. One Chetasika, Vedana, was categorized under Vedana Khandha. The next, Sanya, mental factor, was categorized in Sanya Khandha. So the remaining 50 Chetasika are categorized under Sankhara Khandha, the aggregate of mental formations. And finally, the 89 Chittas are categorized under Vijnana Khandha, the aggregate of consciousness. Let's now look at the first ultimate truth, Chitta. Chitta refers to consciousness, and Chitta means to cognize, to know. Consciousness or Chitta cognizes an object. Chitta never arises in the absence of an object. Think of an old man who walks with the help of a walking stick. In order to walk, the man will cling on to the walking stick. Chitta is like that old man, and the object is like the walking stick. Every time a chitta arises, it will do so in relation to an object. What we call chitta or consciousness is not a single lasting phenomenon. When we say, I'm thinking of something, it really means that a series of chittas have occurred in a rapid succession, one after the other. And because of its rapidity, we cannot detect the discrete individual chittas, which are of diverse types. Chitta never arises in isolation. It always arises with chetasika, mental states. So when we say, I'm thinking of something, we must understand that a series of chittas as well as concomitant chetasikas have arisen, and not a single series of chittas in isolation. There really is only one chitta. But why do we say that there are 89 different kinds of chittas? Let's take a simile to understand it. Take 3 glasses of water from the same source. The water in all 3 glasses would appear the same, smell the same, taste the same, and even feel the same. Now, if one were to dissolve milk in one, orange juice in the next, and tea in the next, what would happen? The water now looks different, smells different, tastes different, and even feels different. Likewise, the chitta takes 89 forms because of the diversity of chetasikas, the mental factors, which combine with it. For example, when a person is angry, we say that a chitta called hatred rooted chitta has arisen. This is because there is the chetasika of hatred arising concomitantly with consciousness, with the chitta. The Abhidhamma uses several principles of classification to categorize the 89 chittas. One method of classifying the chitta is according to jati, their ethical nature. There are 4 categories: kusala, moral consciousness, which generates wholesome karma; akusala, immoral consciousness, which generates unwholesome karma; vipaka, resultant consciousness, the results of the moral and immoral consciousness; kiriya or kriya, inoperative or functional consciousness, which neither generates karma nor are resultant consciousness. Another method of classifying the 89 chittas is by way of hetu, roots. Hetu refer to certain mental factors. There are akusala hetu, unwholesome roots, as well as kusala hetu, wholesome roots. The reason why they are called hetu or roots is because they provide support to the chitta in the same way that the roots of a tree would support the rest of the tree. The 3 akusala hetu, unwholesome roots, are lobha, dosa, and moha. Lobha refers to greed or attachment. Dosa refers to hatred or aversion. And moha refers to ignorance or delusion. The three kusala hetu, wholesome roots, are alobha, adosa, and amoha. These, in fact, are the opposites of the three akusala hetu. Alobha refers to generosity or non attachment. Adosa is goodwill or loving kindness. Amoha is wisdom. So, depending on whether a chitta contains hetu or whether it does not contain hetu, it will be classified as ahetuka chitta, those that do not contain roots, or as sahetuka chitta, those that contain roots. Yet another method of classifying chittas is according to bhumi. There are 4 classes of consciousness, Chatubbhida chitta, based on the planes of existence, bhumi. The first, Kamavachara chitta, sense sphere consciousness. Secondly, Rupavachara chitta, fine material sphere consciousness. The third, Arupavachara chitta, immaterial sphere consciousness. And finally, Lokuttara chitta, supramundane consciousness. The first 3, Kamavachara, Rupavachara, and Arupavachara chitta, are mundane. The fourth, Lokuttara chitta, is supramundane. Now, if you look carefully, the first 3 have the word avachara included in the name. Kama avachara, Rupa avachara, Arupa avachara. And what does the word avachara mean? Avachara refers to sphere and means that which moves about in or frequents a particular locality. The locality frequented is the plane of existence, bhumi, which is designated by the name of the sphere. So there are 3 bhumis, the Kama bhumi, Rupa bhumi, and Arupa bhumi. Planes of existence are realms or worlds in which beings are reborn and in which they pass their lives. There are 31 planes of existence, and these 31 are grouped into 3 spheres. Kama bhumi, the sensuous planes of existence, are 11 in number. The 4 woeful planes, or 4 states of misery, apaya, the human realm, manussaloka, and the 6 celestial realms, or the sensuous heavens, sagga. These belong to the Kama Bhumi. The Rupa Bhumi consists of 16 Rupavachara Brahmic realms, and the Arupa Bhumi consists of 4 Arupavachara Brahmic realms. Let us look at these in further detail. Kama. The word kama either means subjective sensual craving or sensuous object, which are forms, sounds, odor, taste, and contact. Kama also refers to the 11 planes of existence, which is referred to as Kama Bhumi, or sensuous planes of existence. Therefore, Kamavachara Chitta would mean a chitta that frequents the Kama Bhumi. Rupavachara and Arupavachara. These either mean that which pertains to the Rupa or Arupa jhana, or that which mostly frequents the Rupa or Arupa planes. What is a Rupa Bhumi? Rupa Bhumi are Rupavachara Brahmic planes. These are planes where those who develop Rupa jhanas are born. These jhanas are obtained by meditating on material objects, and there are 16 such planes. Arupa Bhumi are Arupavachara Brahmic planes. These are planes without material bodies. And these are planes where those who develop Arupa jhana are born. And it is by the power of meditation that only the mind exists in these planes. Ordinarily, the mind and body are inseparable. Yet, by the willpower, through meticulous training of the mind, by meditation, it is possible, under very exceptional circumstances, to separate the mind from the body. The example given is a piece of iron that is suspended in air by magnetic forces. Consciousness of a particular sphere is not tied down to its corresponding plane. For example, Kamavachara Chitta may arise in the Rupa Bhumi. They may also arise in the Arupa Bhumi. Likewise, a Rupavachara Chitta or an Arupavachara Chitta may arise in the Kama Bhumi. The Chittas are named by the sphere which it frequents the most. So if a particular Chitta arises predominantly in the sense sphere, we will call it a Kamavachara Chitta. And the same way is applicable to the Rupavachara as well as the Arupavachara Chittas. In summary, we spoke about the Tipitaka, the contents of the Pali Canon, the Sutta Pitaka, the Vinaya Pitaka, and the Abhidhamma Pitaka. We gave a brief introduction into the history of the Abhidhamma, the purpose of the Abhidhamma. And then we spoke about the Sammuti Satcha and the Paramatta Satya, the twofold realities. And we spoke briefly about the four ultimate truths: Chitta, Chetasika, Rupa, and Nibbana. And finally, we classified Chitta according to Jati, according to Hetu, and according to Bhumi. In our next talk, we will be talking about the Kamavachara Chitta, or the sense sphere consciousness, in greater detail. May all beings be happy, be well, and free from suffering.